Hey everyone, this is your host Anirban and welcome you again to another episode of the email show. Today I have Akash Gupta, one of the most finest guys in the product management space. He has over 170k newsletter subscribers and Tom Oberg told that he is the number one guy in the product management space. So it's great to have you Akash in the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. So you have been working as a product manager for the last 1 decade. You have worked in the top companies like Rap2Bits, Thredup, Epic Games. Also, you are the VP of product of one of the finest cold email tool, Apello. So how was your experience throughout this decade?
One of the things I learned is that your job at different levels completely transforms. When I was a product manager, I was very focused on what is the next feature to build, working with designers and engineers. As I became a director of product and I was managing people, I became very focused on how do I empower those PMs? How do I mentor those PMs? And then when I finally became a VP, I realized your aperture is actually surrounding around what the senior leadership team wants, not just what the product team wants. And I spent a lot of time influencing sales and marketing. So throughout my career, I started in that little product niche, but I ended up growing into a lot of different business skills and really getting to see what it takes to drive a business forward. So I really enjoyed it.
Amazing. So Tom Orberg from Marketing Ideas, Powell from the Product Compass, Bandon from Productify told and they kept talking about you that you were the number one guy in the product management space. You were the number one thought leader. How does it feel like? What do you think like when people call you the number one guy in the space, which you have been doing for the last decade?
I'm not sure. Maybe they just haven't checked out all the other content out there. I can never consider myself number one. A lot of basketball players, cricket players, they're like, yeah, I'm the best in the world. I personally look around, I see people like Marty Kagan, who has been in the game for 50 plus years and has a several $1 million per year consulting business. Or I look at Lenny Rachitsky, who has million plus subscribers. Or I look at Shreyas Doshi, who makes several $1 million per year off his courses. And I say, okay, these are people who I want to go ahead and surpass. So for me, I have a more of a mentality of how can I keep getting better? And when I hear that, I'm flattered and I think, okay, you guys are so nice. You guys really resonate with my content. And that's awesome that I have found an ICP, an ideal customer profile that thinks my content is the best. And of course, that's my goal. My real goal, though, is to make sure that everybody out there in product management and growth agrees with that. So love to hear it and want to convert more people.
Awesome. All right. So, what led you into newsletter building? Like, what was your thought behind starting a newsletter in the product management space?
So I actually started with LinkedIn, and that was because I was writing a lot when I was working at Epic Games on Fortnite, the biggest game in the world, in my own internal Slack channels. And then COVID hit. And with COVID, I realized, oh, I was commuting to work almost an hour and a half every day, if you count both directions. I was spending hours a day at the office just networking. Now I have all this free time. I used some of that free time to start posting on LinkedIn. I started reading from other creators about how these algorithms, they give, but they also take. And you need to secure your own destiny by creating an owned platform. And that really resonated with me, which is sometimes I'd post something on LinkedIn, it hit 60,000 people. Another time it might hit 5,000 people, even if I have 60,000 followers. So these algorithms, they don't always distribute to your followers. So are they even followers? It's hard to say they're true followers. I wanted to create some true followers. And so that's what really motivated me to capture people's interest. And I know it's a little bit annoying. Like if you visit my website, after you scroll for like 30 seconds, I'll give you an email pop up. As a user, before I became a writer, I used to kind of be like, why are they doing this? This is so silly. But now on the other side, I completely understand because now I have followers who I might have acquired 3 years ago and they're still on my email list. And I ask them sometimes, I say, have you ever seen my LinkedIn post? They say, no, LinkedIn has totally buried you for me. But email is the one way I can still reach out to them. So that's the kernel of insight that helped drive the newsletter to begin with.
So you are saying that you have 260k followers on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is your number one channel for growing your subscribers.
So LinkedIn is a pretty important channel. I would say Actually, my most important channel these days is Substack recommendations. So I get probably the most newsletter subscribers from that feature, which I think there's today, as of today, like over 1,100 newsletters recommending my newsletter. And so those are people who also write newsletters who felt like my content is worth recommending to their audience. And after people sign up to their newsletter, Substack says, "Oh, would you be interested in subscribing to these other newsletters that this author recommends, including my newsletter, Product Growth?" And that has been the really important flywheel for growth.
So why did you choose Substack over Kit and Beehive?
So if I were to do it again today, I might actually choose Beehiiv. I think Kit is a little bit expensive. It's pretty good for like people who want to create like email sequences or personalize um, the content they send to folks into certain segments and then have segmented list strategies. So I do really like the functionality of Kit. To be honest, I was hoping Substack would have released that functionality by now. I'm very frustrated, honestly, with Substack. There's a couple things that are wrong with Substack. Number one is they're trying to be like the social media platforms where they own your audience instead of you owning your audience. So if you click a link to my website these days, they put an app pop up like follow Akash in the Substack app, which is quite annoying. But back in the day, it used to be an email address pop up. So I really liked the functionality in the beginning days of Substack. When I started, Beehive wasn't really a thing. Maybe like it had just gotten founded, but it didn't have the great functionality it has now. Now, Beehive is far and away better than Substack and Kit, in my personal opinion, because they're shipping so many features so frequently. They're good at deliverability, they're good at customizability, they're good at allowing you to incorporate ads into your business model. And so, all those things I think make Beehive probably the best place if I were to start again today. But the lock in that I have from Substack, from those recommendations, this 1,100 newsletters recommending me, is pretty hard to walk away from.
So I have talked to with the account executive of Beehive as well, Tom Brady, and Beehive is actually they are building a newsletter ecosystem. Uh, I mean, the founders used to work in Morning Brew, so they know how it works, how the new overall newsletter content ecosystem works. But when it comes to Substack, Substack is trying to be a social media or creator first platform. So that's why they are inviting the Substack notes. I mean, maybe they will start bringing some new features as well. So that's why Beehive was built only for newsletter purpose. So if you were starting today, I mean, if it were your first day on in the newsletter space, it would be Beehive, right? Awesome. So do you think that Substack helps you? Like you have mentioned that Substack helps you with this recommendation part. But apart from that, when it comes to your content flywheel, do you think Substack has an importance in that, or do you think that it's your social media game?
Substack does a couple things that are pretty interesting. So, three other benefits outside of recommendations that I do like about Substack. Number one, they have a lot of saved credit cards, and I have a paid newsletter. That's actually my main business model. And what I've noticed, a lot of the people who are paying for my newsletter have already had a saved credit card with Substack. So that's one really important thing. That's reducing the friction to become a paid subscriber. Number two is that Substack's main business model is paid subscriptions versus a Beehive is very much invested in its advertising network, and a Kit is very much invested in getting people to pay based on the size of their email list. So they all have different monetization models, and what your monetization model is, what your incentives are, really drives the structure of how you build things. And so Substack is constantly releasing features to improve paid subscriptions. One of those features that they recently released, I think a couple years back, I guess now, so not recently, but released that I thought was effective, was they created some programs around referrals that were very easy to use for users. So free users could refer people to my newsletter. And if they referred enough friends, they'd get free months of the paid newsletter. And if they referred more friends, they'd get more paid newsletter months. And they could also rise on my leaderboard that is public. So that's one example of how, because of their business model, they're shipping features for that. Another thing that they've released is Substack Notes, which is basically a Twitter competitor or a Threads competitor. So I do post some content on there and receive some subscribers on there. To be honest, It's not that good. It's not as good as Twitter or LinkedIn. It is better than Threads for me. So I do like that component of Substack Notes. And then probably the last thing that's interesting about Substack is that they are actually doing a really good job, or they're spending a lot of money, a lot of the money they're earning from people like me, to acquire more creators. So they keep acquiring more and more. And you might have recently heard the news that they just raised, I believe it's like $100 million at like $1 billion valuation. So they are continuing to get money, putting it in, investing it in the business at a fast pace. And so that's the other thing that I like.
So I have came to know about you from Growth in Reverse newsletter. I guess mostly those people who are watching this podcast, they came to know about you from GIR only, because channel is doing a pretty amazing job there. She also invited you in her podcast as well. Like you have mentioned that don't be everywhere in the podcast when it comes to paid newsletters business. So what do you mean? Do you mean that we should focus only on one platform when it comes to the paid newsletter, or do you think that we should distribute the content in such a way that we can attract more people and we can become the people magnet?
I don't remember the context of what I was saying in terms of don't be everywhere, but the larger sort of insight here, right? Or at least how I try to structure my content is I have a paid newsletter at the center of the business, right? So I want to make sure that my paid newsletter subscribers get access to the best, most content first, right? Best, most first. And so what I'll do is I'll create, or my entire life really is organized around creating a really, really good paid newsletter. Then once I create that paid newsletter, I'll take a look and I'll say, okay, what portion of this am I going to distribute on social media? What portion of this am I going to make available for free subscribers? And so taking that basically hub and then creating spokes off of that. Okay, maybe if there are 5 really good infographics in this paid newsletter, maybe 2 of them will be available for free newsletter subscribers, and the ones that are available for free newsletter subscribers I can post on different social media. But I'm not going to necessarily reveal all 5, because then there's no reason to be subscribed to my paid newsletter. So that's how I try to think about it.
So you also have a podcast which is free. So how do you use your podcast to grow your subscriber base?
I think my podcast actually doesn't grow my subscriber base at all. It most likely shrinks my subscriber base, because I send emails of my podcast to my newsletter. And every time you send an email, as you know, you get a bunch of unsubscribes. And I'll get like, right now, like these days, with a list of 177,000, I'll get something like 150 unsubscribes when I send a podcast email to the list. And then when I distribute my podcast on social media and different platforms, I'll only get like maybe like 10 free subscribers back from promoting the podcast. So the podcast, at least as of now, and it might be due to my own failures as a podcaster or distributing the podcast or something like that, but at least right as of now, the math is that the podcast is decreasing the size of my email list.
Amazing. So let's assume someone wants to start a newsletter today, or let's assume someone wants to start a paid newsletter business today. What are the 5 steps they should follow?
Okay, so if you want to start a paid newsletter, it's very different from a regular newsletter. So there's a lot of content out there about newsletters. So let's talk about paid newsletters, right? Step 1, what is your market of one? Because when we're talking about a paid newsletter, we want people like Tom or Bundan or Pavel to really consider you the world leading expert in that thing. And that's why I say a market of one. I took this concept from David Perel. And when you think about it, everybody does have a market of one. It's about figuring out what are those things that people want, that you have expertise in, that very few other people have expertise in. And at the center of those 3 circles, at the center of that Venn diagram, that lies the place that your newsletter should be about. And so if you look at other paid newsletters out there in my niche, there are some newsletters that are pretty good about B2B growth. There are some newsletters that are pretty good about consumer growth. There's very little that's really good at B2B and B2C consumer growth and careers. And so that little intersection there of, okay, B2B growth, consumer growth, and career. Is there any other newsletter talking about that? Not really. That's because there's nobody else who's really had that level of expertise in that area, like we talked about at the very beginning, through a 16-year career rising from PM to VP of product across those areas. So that became my market of one. So that's step one. Step two to building a paid newsletter is actually to grow your distribution first. So before you just immediately switch on to paid, I would recommend you get good at one social media channel. I know that people might look at me and say, hey, you're posting on different social media channels. That's hypocritical. You're telling me to only focus on one. But actually, at the beginning, like we talked about, I just focused on LinkedIn. So at the beginning, you just want to focus on one social media. And that's because it takes a lot of time, investment to get really good at one social media. And even now that I focus on multiple social media, I think it hurts my LinkedIn because I don't have my brain 24/7 just marinating on how do I get better at LinkedIn, just opening up the LinkedIn app and looking at other people's posts. There's so many little intricacies on any platform that allow you to succeed. One of the most important is literally using their new features when they're new. So about a year ago, LinkedIn released the video tab on LinkedIn. Video was getting insane distribution compared to the quality of the video. So I started using a lot of video. Now that distribution has really normalized where if your video is really good, you do get distribution, but if you just have a normal video, you're not going to get insane distribution. So understanding the nuances of the new features and being able to use them and learning the nuances of what is a good one-line hook, what is a good second-line rehook. These skills only come if you're really focused. And so establish your distribution on a single channel. That's step two. Step three is to start building out your free newsletter list. So, like I did, I think I probably had around 60,000 free newsletter subscribers before I ever went paid. And so you're creating this nice base where you're learning all about newsletter writing, how to write an email newsletter subject line that people are going to open, how to write a good first 3 paragraphs so people read the rest of the article, how to make sure that you're not sending out so many newsletters that your unsubscribes grow faster than your growth rate. There's so many little nuances on newsletters that you want to learn. Step four is to finally go paid. And when you go paid, what you should do is you should think about what is my unique offering for this paid newsletter? And so many people have different unique offerings. And so what I would say is try not to use a copycat strategy or a copycat formula. The key to strategy is looking at, okay, what are other people doing that no one else is doing? What are they doing? What am I going to learn from them? But how do I create sort of a differentiated value proposition? So I really like this guy, Nate B. Jones, for instance, who's recently grown on his technology Substack. So he realized, okay, people are not doing like a daily AI newsletter that's paid. There are some daily AI newsletters, but few of them are paid. So I'll create one of those. And a lot of people are doing AI newsletters, but very few people are kind of being like the sane voice of reason. That's like, instead of just hyping up ChatGPT agent mode, I'm saying, hey, here's what's wrong with ChatGPT agent mode. So he created a unique differentiated strategy, and now he's growing incredibly fast on Substack. So that's an example of creating a differentiated strategy for your paid newsletter. And then step five is to analyze your data rigorously. I look at every single email newsletter. The number one metric for me is how many new paid subscribers did I get minus how many paid unsubscribes did I get. And sometimes I'll be honest, I'll send an email and I'll get more paid unsubscribes than subscribes. And that for me is I need to extract what are the learnings here? Was it the hook? Was it the subject line? Was it the quality of the deep dive? Was it the infographics? Was it the amount of research I put in? And slowly learn, like we did in steps 3 for distribution and steps 4 for free newsletter, for step 5 or steps 2 and 3. I think. What is going on for a paid newsletter, and really just analyze and live in your analytics. Take a look at your retention curves. Go talk to users who have unsubscribed. Go talk to users who are still subscribed, and build both your data-based and user insights-based understanding of what drives success. And that's going to be the key to creating your growth.
So the UVPs really the most important thing when it comes to newsletter, because right now there are so many people who are creating their own newsletter. They are on Substack, they're on Beehiiv, or they are on Kit. But the problem is it looks like it looks like copy pasting someone else's content, or maybe just so content, right? So AI changed the game. AI changed the content game overall. So how you use AI to grow your newsletter?
Yeah, I think that look, what AI did, at least as of what we're talking about right now, is it allowed people who were below average writers to create average content. And so there is now basically, if you would think about like 100 newsletters, 50 was the average. The 0 through 50 are now able to create 50th quality newsletter. Now, if you want to grow your newsletter, you need to be in that above average section. So for me personally, while 2 years ago actually I did make pretty extensive use of ChatGPT and Claude, what I found is that nowadays everybody's trying to sniff out what they read. Is there any AI smell here? Oh, is there an M dash? Oh, did he use ChatGPT? Or are there a lot of emojis? He used ChatGPT. Or did he say it's not, but it is? Then he used ChatGPT, right? So people hate getting AI generated content. And so personally for me, I don't really use AI much at all for my newsletter. I used to have a workflow where I did use AI. Nowadays, the main thing I do is after I write my entire piece, I will do two things. Number one, I have a really nice project file in ChatGPT and Claude, which has all my best performing articles. It has a bunch of my user interviews, notes from people about, hey, this is what I liked about your post. This is what I didn't like. It has a bunch of public reviews of my posts. So it has a bunch of context about what makes a good post for me. It also has all my data around which posts have done well and which haven't done well, and how many, again, to my North Star metric, paid subscribers did they drive. And once I write the first draft, then I have a really good meta prompt in my prompt library, which asks it to be extremely critical, to act like a true, genius analyst using all the data it has to come up with really good suggestions to improve performance against that key metric for me on the newsletter. And so I do, once I've written like a 90% complete draft, drop the newsletter in with that prompt and I get some good feedback. And so that will be kind of my last 10% of refinement of the newsletter.
That's amazing. So, as you know, there are some top people in the newsletter space. Sahil Bloom, Lenny. So they are over 900K subscribers. So are you planning something different in order to reach to that certain level?
To be totally honest, I'm not the type of person who really compares myself or cares about the success that other people have. I think it's awesome that they're like have 900,000 plus subscribers. And, I'm very proud of the, to be call both of them kind of my friends and have known both of them for 3 plus years. So I'm just cheering those two guys on. They're amazing. And I think that, Lenny lives in San Francisco and Sahil has a very expensive home outside New York City. And so they need to earn a lot of money because they're in the two highest cost living places in the world. I personally, for me, I look at my own budget. I say, hey, what amount of money do I need to earn in order to cover my budget and in order to save? Try to have a low cost of living base and just do that much. And that's the beautiful thing about being a creator is you control how much time you put in, how much money you earn. For me, I could probably be earning 5 times as much as I'm earning if I was working harder, if I released a course, if I had a group coaching cohort, all these different things, if I had tripled down on AI. In 2023, I was the biggest AI influencer in the world, but I never did any of those things. I pursue my passion just so that I earn just enough so that I can save and cover my budget and I can live life. I have two young kids, wonderful wife. Those are my real priorities. So good, great for them for having 900,000 plus. But personally, for me, I'm the happiest guy in the world because I have more than enough money to cover my needs.
So newsletter is your tentpole, right? So you have shared how much money you have made from your newsletter. So would you mind sharing it to the audience how much money you have made in the year 2023 to 2024 or and 2024 to 25?
Yeah. In basically what is like the growth, right, of my revenues. If you think about it, like my first year as a creator, I probably made like 200K or so. My second year as a creator, I probably made around like 475K. And this latest year as a creator, I'm going to be cross $1 million. So I'm trying to do more than 100, little bit more than 100% growth per year
So in June itself, you have made over $34,000.
on the paid newsletter. Yep.
Amazing. That's good. So do you have a route in India?
In terms of India, yeah, my parents were born in India. मैं थोड़ा बहुत in हिंदी में बोल लेता हूँ, पर I was born and raised in America, but I'm very strongly tied to Indian culture, do all of the Indian festivals, go to temple and all those types of things. Most of my friends, readers, subscribers are Indian, so that's how I stay close. And in fact, I just said goodbye to a bunch of my aunts and uncles, my chachas and chachis who were here staying at my place. So I'm very close to that family.
Awesome. So what is your number one advice to the people who are starting their newsletter business?
Find something that you're passionate about and can write about for a long time. You would be surprised how many newsletters I've seen come and go in the years that I've been doing this. I've seen a lot of people who they really, I think, amazing. What they're doing is amazing, but they burn themselves out. And 6 months later, they don't have a newsletter. Or 1 year later, they just move on to the next thing. The people who succeed, you mentioned Sahil and Lenny, they've been doing it for years and years. And I think sometimes just that longevity is the most important.
Awesome. So 2025 is the year of local newsletters, right? So are you planning to start your local newsletter?
I don't want to start any more businesses. I want to stay focused on the core because I feel like focus is what really drives success.
Awesome. So do you have anything to offer to the audience, like how they can reach out to you, or if they want mentorship from you, or anything, any course or anything?
Yeah, if you want to try to build $1 million newsletter business, you want coaching from me, you can find me on Intro. If you want to subscribe to my newsletter to hear my story, I give you regular updates, or you can follow me on LinkedIn where I share a lot of this and build in public.
Awesome. Thank you for being here today and share your wisdom. Whatever you have shared, it is really commendable. I really appreciate you for giving your precious time, and thank you so much for coming.
Thanks so much for having me. You're a legend.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Bye, everyone.